With our breaking news, where former Springbok player James Small has died of a heart attack. Small was part of the 1995 World Cup winning team, and he played 47 tests between 1992 and 1997. Henry Leroux paid tribute to his former teammate.
Obviously, we're all very deeply saddened by his passing, and it was such a privilege knowing James. You know, he was an enigma, but someone who was larger than life, and someone who lived life to the full. He had enormous talent, and he was a superb right winger. He could really create and finish off opportunities that few others could, and that's what made James, so special. James is just James. He was, as I said, a very passionate individual, and he believed very much in playing for the jersey and playing and succeeding for his country, and that got his testosterone up, and he always wanted to exceed and do the best for his country, and I think it should be seen in that light as someone who really gave his all for the country.
Chester Williams says Small was the reason he scored so many tries. Williams was paying tribute to the Springbok wing when he said this.
We were very good friends. We understood each other on the field. Us also with James Small, myself, and Andre Rubé, the back three were the cornerstone of the Springbok team at the time. And we, as I said, we understood each other very well. When to cover each other, when to support each other. And there was a lot of time that James would come and cross on to my side and cross the defence on the other side, and I would do the same for him. And normally before the game, we'd always come together and we say, you watch my back and I watch his back, and it worked out so well, and we're going to miss James quite a lot for that as well. I think that James not only had the talent, but I think the main thing with him, he could communicate well, and James his vision was amazing on the field. He could see and sense when there's an opportunity for him to score a try, and it's the reason why he scored so many tries. He was a difficult opponent, especially when he played for the Lions. I was with the Stormers at the time, and so, yeah, it was difficult. And as I said, he not only had the talent, but he was a good communicator. And the way he was never in the same position where wing's supposed to be. So that makes it so difficult for James to be my opponent.
Now, veteran sports journalist John Walland followed the career of Small for over 2 decades, and he joins us now on the line from Johannesburg. John, thank you so much for joining us under the circumstances, but your initial reactions on the passing of James Small?
A very good afternoon to you, Tamelo. I must admit that I thought that, in this day and age, that this maybe was fake news, to be quite honest with you, and I must confess to even phoning his number to make sure that it was really real. I couldn't believe it. It came as a massive shock to everybody, I think, because, James was a larger-than-life character. He had a huge heart. And one thing about him, I suppose you could almost describe him as a rebel. He was a true player. He stood up for the underdog as well. He fought for all his players, a true warrior and a really special character, Tamelo.
Now, John, you also had many encounters, I understand, with James. What were some of your most memorable?
Well, I must be honest with you, the one that really comes to mind was in the year that he played. I mean, he made his debut for the Springboks against New Zealand in '92, and as you know, he played 47 tests until '97. Now, during that time, he was involved under the tenure of the then coach, which was Carl du Plessis, and they were playing at Newlands. And I actually phoned Carl. I had a very good bonding with him, and he said, what we're going to do? I want to do a feature in bed with the box, so to speak. And he allowed me to actually go into the rooms on the morning of a test and speak to certain players. He said, who would you like to speak to? And I said, I want to speak to a larger-than-life character. He said, James Small. I went into the room in the early hours, in the early morning prior to breakfast, and knocked on the door, and there was no answer. And James always had this thing about he didn't like curfews and things like that, and he even broke a curfew when he was playing for the Sharks, because the Sharks' attitude was that as long as you pitched for the game, you could do what you wanted to off the field, so to speak, and really come to the party. But under playing for the Springboks, a totally different vibe. Andre Markgraaff, for example, it didn't allow him to play in the squad during his tenure. But Carl said, you can go into the room and you can chat to him and find out how he's feeling ahead of this eagerly awaited test match. Knocked on the door, no answer. I waited for about 5 minutes. He eventually got up, and there he was in his bed, and he got up and he literally was, wiping his eyes, and he chatted about the game. So he was always there for you. He was a guy that you didn't want to mess with either. He had a very strong character, but he had a very good heart, I must admit, Tomelo.
And just speaking of that character, John, I'm sure, you can agree with me that as a veteran sports journalist, your role is to record history, in this regard, sports history in South Africa. What do you think his legacy is? What legacy has he left behind?
He'll leave a very strong legacy. The fact that he had so many supporters, not only when donning the green and gold and having played a member of the triumphant Rugby World Cup squad in 1995, he'll always have a special place in the hearts and minds of the South African public, that's for sure. The legacy that he will leave behind is a special character, a true warrior in essence, Tomelo. He's going to be sadly missed. He played for the Golden Lions, who were then Transvaal, of course now the Emirates Lions, the Sharks, then the Western Province. He's an absolute legend, and I think having appeared not only in a Rugby World Cup final, but also in Currie Cup finals, in fact, for all three of those sides, and lifting the coveted Golden Cup in the colours of the Sharks and Western Province, but unfortunately never with the Golden Lions. So he'll be remembered for all those great moments. His debut in 1992 against the All Blacks as well.
Thank you so much, John. Veteran sports journalist John Walland joining us on the line, taking us through